2 to 8 inches of rain in a matter of hours, on ground that was already soaked from the round before it. Multiple flash flood emergencies issued, water rescues, homes inundated, entire counties declared in a state of emergency, and rivers that climbed faster than anyone living near them was mentally prepared for. That is what just happened across parts of Kentucky, Tennessee, southern Indiana, and northwest North Carolina. And here is the thing I need you to understand, because this is the part the headline coverage is not connecting. That was not the storm. That was the warm-up. The atmospheric setup that produced those flash flood emergencies has not gone anywhere. It is still locked in place. The ground that got hammered is still saturated. The same engine is still spinning. And the rain that is about to fall on top of all of it is going to land on land that has no capacity left to absorb it. That is the mechanism that turns a bad weekend into a catastrophic week. Not the rain rate, not the storm size, the fact that the next storm hits ground that was already full from the last one. So today I want to walk you through exactly why this flash flood threat is about to get worse, who is sitting in the bullseye, and what you need to do before the next round of water starts rising. Let's get into it. I know how this sounds. Another flood video. We just had floods. Why are you telling me there is going to be more? I get it. So let me be precise about why this update is different, because the difference is not the rain. It is what the rain is landing on, and it is what is forcing the rain to fall in the same places over and over instead of moving on the way it normally would. There are three forces stacking on top of each other right now, and I want you to see them clearly, because once you do, the words "about to get worse" stop sounding like hype and start sounding like the only honest description of what is coming. The first force is the heat dome. You've probably heard about the historic heat wave building over the eastern two-thirds of the country. 200 million people, dangerous heat indices, daily records threatened. That entire event is being driven by a massive ridge of high pressure parked over the east. And here is what almost nobody outside of professional meteorology is connecting. That same heat dome is the thing creating the flash flood threat. The dome itself is a lid, suppressing storms in its center, but around the rim, around the edges of that lid, is where the atmosphere is most unstable, and that is where the storms erupt. Forecasters have a name for this. They call it the Ring of Fire. Not the seismic one, but the same shape, a circle of thunderstorms riding around the edge of a heat dome, sometimes a ring of storms thousands of miles long. The storms in that ring do not just produce rain. They produce torrential training, repeating rounds of rain along the same path because the dome itself is forcing the airflow to circulate clockwise around it. The storms move in a circle around the high. And every time that circle puts a storm cluster over the same county, the same creek, the same low spot that is the train running over the rail again, the heat dome is not separate from the flood threat. It is creating it. The second force is the saturation. A flash flood is not just about how much rain falls. It is about how much rain falls on ground that cannot hold anymore. The parts of Kentucky, Tennessee, southern Indiana, and the Carolinas that got hit hardest over the past few days received historic rainfall totals, in some spots between 2.5 and 8 inches in a short window. That kind of rain does not just disappear, it saturates the soil, it fills the creeks and small streams, it loads the rivers. And what it does to the next round of rain is the most important thing to understand about this entire setup. When ground is fully saturated, it does not act like soil anymore. It acts like pavement. Water that hits it does not soak in. It runs off instantly into the same channels and low spots that are already full. So a second round of 2 or 3 inches of rain in a few hours, falling on saturated ground, can produce more flooding than the first round did, even if the rain rate is the same or less. The river was empty before, now it is not. The creek had room before, now it does not. That is the cumulative effect that turns a wet week into a flooding emergency. The third force is the size of the moisture reservoir feeding all of this. The atmosphere right now is loaded. Data measuring the total amount of water vapor in vertical slices of the air column has shown a steady increase over the past 3 decades, especially during the first stretch of summer. That is not opinion. That is satellite measurement. Warmer air physically holds more moisture, and a wetter atmosphere produces the kind of sudden, high-intensity rainfall rates that overwhelm streets, sewer systems, and small streams in a matter of an hour or two. Forecasters have already noted that just last year, flash flooding reports across the country jumped roughly 70% compared to the 10-year average. The Tennessee Valley specifically is projected to see a 20 to 40% increase in the kind of intense rainfall events that drive flash flooding. The reservoir of moisture is bigger than it used to be. The storms riding around the rim of the dome are pulling from a fuller tank, and the rain those storms produce is more intense, more concentrated, and more dangerous than the rain of a generation ago. Now put all three together, a heat dome locking the pattern in place and forcing storms to repeat along the same rim, saturated ground from previous rounds that no longer absorbs water, and a deeper than normal atmospheric moisture reservoir feeding every storm that fires. That is not 3 separate problems. That is one problem with 3 multipliers, and it is exactly why the people forecasting this for a living are warning, in plain language, that the next round is going to land harder than the last one. The threat is not winding down. It is reloading. Let me get specific about who is sitting in the path of this, because flash flooding is intensely local, and you need to know whether this is your problem or your neighbor's. The biggest bullseye is the Ohio Valley and the Mid-South, Kentucky, Tennessee, southern Indiana, southern Illinois, and into West Virginia. This is the corridor that has already taken the worst hits and is still in the crosshairs of the next round. The Weather Prediction Center has kept this region under elevated risk for excessive rainfall, with rounds of thunderstorms expected to keep firing along the dome's western and northern rim. Rainfall totals of 1 to 3 inches at a time are easy to forecast, but the localized spots where storms train can deliver 3 to 5 inches or more, with rain rates approaching 2 to 3 inches per hour. On already saturated ground, that math gets ugly fast. If you live anywhere in this corridor, this is your week to be on high alert. The Appalachian and Carolina foothills are another zone to watch closely, especially northwest North Carolina, western Virginia, and the Tennessee-North Carolina border. Mountainous terrain is some of the most dangerous flash flood country in the country, period. Water that falls on a mountainside does not have a flat field to spread across. It funnels, it rips down the side of the terrain into narrow valleys and small creeks that can rise from ankle deep to deadly in under an hour. The fact that this region already took a hit means the soil is loaded, and any new round will produce flash flooding faster with less warning. The upper Mississippi Valley and upper Great Lakes is the next zone forecasters are watching, because the dome's northern rim is sliding the storm energy that way as the dome strengthens. Slow-moving frontal boundaries setting up along the dome's edge, fed by above-average atmospheric moisture, are exactly the recipe for the kind of stationary thunderstorms that drop excessive rainfall on a narrow strip of geography. Iowa, Wisconsin, Minnesota, northern Illinois, and into Michigan, this is the next zone that is expected to take repeated rounds as the rim activity slides north. And do not forget the cities. Urban flash flooding is its own distinct nightmare, and it has nothing to do with how close you are to a river. Big city drainage systems were engineered decades ago to move a certain volume of water per hour, often nothing more than a couple of inches. When a modern, supercharged downpour delivers double or triple that rate in a fraction of the time, the system simply cannot keep up. The water backs up. It pours into streets, basements, subways, and underpasses. Any major metro area sitting underneath the ring of fire faces that risk, regardless of how far it is from a coast or a creek. And the heat dome makes it worse because the same storms producing the urban flooding cannot move on. They sit, dumping more rain over the same skyline. Now, I want to take a moment on the single most important thing you can know going into a multi-day flooding event like this, because it is the difference between a close call and a tragedy, and it is misunderstood constantly. You have to understand your flood alerts, because the words mean very different things and they are not interchangeable. A flood watch means conditions are favorable for flooding. It is the heads up. It means be ready, know your plan, watch the sky and your phone. A flood warning means flooding is happening or is about to happen. That is the move now signal. And the most serious of all, a flash flood emergency is reserved for the rare situations where catastrophic, life-threatening flooding is occurring. When you see that last one, you do not assess. You do not finish what you are doing. You act. Knowing the difference between these three before the rain starts is one of the most genuinely life-saving pieces of knowledge you can carry. So here is your practical action list, because the worst thing you can do during a flood is wait until you can see the water rising to start preparing. The first rule, the rule that matters more than every other rule combined, is turn around, do not drown. The overwhelming majority of flood deaths happen in vehicles, when people drive into water across a roadway. You cannot tell how deep it is. You cannot tell whether the road underneath is even still there, because flood water routinely scours pavement out from underneath itself and leaves a hidden drop-off you cannot see. It takes a shockingly small amount of moving water to lift and carry a vehicle, far less than people believe. If you come to a flooded road, you turn around. Every single time, no exceptions. No destination is worth dying over. Know your low spots before the next round arrives. Right now, today, on whatever break in the weather you get, identify the 2 or 3 places near your home and along your daily routes that flood, the underpass, the dip in the road, the low water crossing, the creek that comes up. Then figure out an alternate route around each one. Do it calmly, on dry pavement, so you are not figuring it out in the dark in a downpour. Watch the excessive rainfall outlook every single morning this week. This is the forecast product that tells you the flash flood risk for your specific area before the rain falls. When you see a slight, moderate, or high risk posted for where you live, treat that day with respect. Keep your alerts on. Avoid travel through your known flood-prone spots. Have a way out planned before you need one. Prepare your home now if you live in a flood-prone area. Make sure your sump pump works and consider a battery backup if you do not already have one. Move valuables, irreplaceable items, important documents, and electronics up off basement floors and out of low-lying spaces. Keep your important papers in a waterproof, elevated container. These are the small, boring tasks that feel pointless until the one night they save you thousands of dollars and pieces of your life you cannot replace. And keep your phone alerts on overnight. The single most dangerous time for flash flooding is at night, when storms train over an area after dark and people are asleep, completely unaware the water is rising around them. Make sure wireless emergency alerts are enabled, and that the volume is loud enough to wake you. If you have a NOAA weather radio, use it. That alert going off in the dark is, for a lot of people, the only warning they will get in time to act. Check on your neighbors, especially the elderly, and anyone living alone in low-lying areas or in mobile homes. A wellness check before the next round can save a life. The people most likely to be caught off guard by rising water are the ones least able to react quickly to it. Here is the honest summary of where we stand. A heat dome over the eastern half of the country is creating a ring of fire pattern of training thunderstorms around its rim. The ground in the worst hit zones from the most recent round is already saturated and acting like pavement. The atmosphere is loaded with more moisture than it used to carry, and the storms riding the rim are wringing it out at high rates over the same geography again and again. This is not winding down. It is reloading, and the next round will land on land that has no capacity left to absorb it. That is the recipe for flash flooding to get worse, not better, in the days ahead. So, know your alerts, know your low spots, watch the rainfall outlook every morning. Prepare your home before the next round arrives. Keep your alerts on overnight. Check on the vulnerable people in your life. And no matter what, if you come to water across a road, turn around. Do not drown. The atmosphere is locked in. The dome is not moving, and the water is going to keep coming. I will be tracking every shift in this setup, and I will bring you the next update the moment it sharpens. Until then, stay safe, stay prepared, and never ever let your guard down.